6:03, I'll call the January 19th, 2021 Board of Ed meeting to order. We can stand for the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I think we have everybody here. Andrea is out still on her quarantine, but she shall be back for the next meeting. At this time, is there anyone from the public who would like to address the board? I have one letter to read in to the record that we received. This is, good evening, Chairperson Waterfield and members of the West Haven Board of Education. I'm writing on behalf of the West Haven PTA Council. We met on Tuesday, January 12th. Among items discussed were some concerns regarding mask breaks throughout our district, distance learning, inclusivity, and communication regarding quarantine and reentry policies following exposure or illness. I apologize, I forgot my reading glasses. I would like to take a moment of your time to express these concerns as they were presented to me. We, as a PTA Council, feel strongly that mask breaks should be provided to each and every student within the district. While we understand that there are some challenges in accommodating that request, we do feel that inequities from school to school and even classroom to classroom are concerning. While we support the need for children to be in school safely, we do feel that mask breaks should be a part of the daily routine. We do not feel like a mask break should be an optional part of the day. We would like to see better utilization of the outdoor spaces as well as open spaces throughout the school for mask breaks. Some students have expressed their discomfort taking their mask off in their classroom or at their seat, and we as a district should be sensitive to that. While it is important for the students to be in school, it is our job as the adults responsible for them to ensure that not only do they feel that their physical well-being is our priority, but their emotional well-being is just as important to us. It is frustrating to say the least when students discuss their daily mask breaks with siblings or peers who in turn do not understand why they are not given the same respite throughout the day. We feel that some consistency across the district will be beneficial to everyone. Another concern that was discussed is the request for teachers and staff to be mindful of including distance learners in the school community. From picture days to projects to daily check-ins, mindfulness of a student being part of the class is always appreciated. We are fully aware of the hard work and extra time that each and every member of this district has put into making this year and the challenges that come along with it as successful as possible. We really do feel that our district employs the best of the best, and we applaud the commitment to our students both in and out of the classroom. The last concern we would like to bring before you is that of timeliness regarding exposure and illness. Many parents feel that they do not have the most up-to-date information regarding timelines, and it is often challenging to know when their child may return from a quarantine or illness. The CDC guidelines can at times contradict those of the Department of Education, and when a parent contacts their physician or is notified by a contact tracer, they get mixed information regarding what the return date should be. A possible communication regarding the differences between recommendations from family physicians, contact tracers, and school officials may be beneficial in helping families to better understand the different guidelines. In closing, and on behalf of all the members of the West Haven PTA Council, I would like to thank each and every Board of Education member, as well as Superintendent Cavallaro, Marissa Acapora, Jill Garfo, and all the administrators for working so closely with the PTA Council this year. More than ever, open lines of communication are imperative, and the partnership with all of you is invaluable. Respectfully submitted, Kim Kenny, President of the West Haven PTA Council, 31 Down Drive Circle, West Haven. In regards to this communication from Kim, the building administrators remain aware and have responded, and also a meeting was set up last Friday with Kim and Marissa, and I believe all of their concerns have been addressed. Kim, if you are listening and they have not, feel free to contact me or the superintendent's office, or Marissa or Jill directly. I'm sure you'll get the responses that you need. So for a second time, is there anyone else that would like to address the board? Third and final time, is there anyone else that would like to address the board? Seeing none, public session is closed at 6:07. Next, we have administration status of schools. Before Neil starts, I'd like to apologize that I'm on call. We just opened our vaccine clinic scheduling, and I'm on call for that. So if I step away from the microphone, Rosa is gonna take over. It's just in my on-call favorites. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yeah, Kevin, just to take off on the letter. I mean, as soon as we received the letter, Marissa and I met. She and I sent a joint letter back to the PTA, which I believe we copied you on. We believe we've addressed all of the concern, and the meeting was held on Friday between Marissa and Kim to go over any misunderstanding. But all of our administrators were also made aware of their concerns so that we can be consistent across the district.
Thank you.
And I'm pretty confident that we can address, and we have addressed what they're saying. So I've got two issues tonight. Second one is about the budget, and then I'm going to turn it over to Matt. First, I want to talk about, we sent you the most recent communications regarding vaccines. As you all know, the education community is part of 1B phase of the vaccinations. And we had been preparing to submit our rosters to the health department so that we can start the vaccination process. And you all saw that, and again, I don't know what the glitch is. I don't know if it's anyone's fault or if they're overwhelmed. However, we've since received communication, since we had a whole plan ready to go on Friday that says, stop what you're doing right now. As of right now, phase 1B, the only people that could register are people aged 75 or older. But I can assure you that as soon as our employees are able, or we're able to register our employees, we will do so. We're trying to work with the city. They will put aside a certain number of vaccines for what, I don't know if it's a clinic or what they're able to do. So we may not even have to go on the VMS site and register, but they'll also be able to do that once our names are uploaded. I had mentioned this to you last week or the last meeting that we were looking at a plan to extend the school day in conjunction with the vaccines. In fact, our administrators worked really, really hard to come up with a plan which basically would have extended the day about an hour at each level. It would have included some snack time at the older levels and a 20-minute lunch in class at the elementary levels. However, again, the best laid plans, we didn't think now was the appropriate time to go forward with that change. And I think one of the reasons that I felt pretty strongly about that, although again, our people worked really hard, they worked really well with the teachers in their building to develop a plan, is because, we have been getting really good cooperation from the union and explaining to them what our ideas were and how we wanted to proceed. And I thought to go forward with a plan to extend the day, and we probably could have done that. But, in anticipation of the vaccine, it didn't seem like the timing was right. So we decided to wait. We'd actually come up with a date of February 22nd that I was going to talk to you tonight about, but it just didn't seem right. I mean, I think we can wait a couple more weeks or at least get a timeline for the vaccine or to get us registered for the vaccine before we start any change of our schedule. It's something we certainly would like to do. We should do it. But again, because of the cooperation we've received with the teachers union, because they understand, our eagerness to do that, I thought to do it now and to introduce a new schedule and say, here's a date when we're going to start, it just didn't make sense. So we'll keep you informed. Certainly, as we get information, we've tried to send you copies of the communications. I've done my best to keep all of our bargaining units informed of the status of when we can register. What we actually determined was, and we've done this with those, we do have employees 75 and older, we have submitted that list, but what we decided to do, regardless of the bargaining unit, if you're an employee at the West Haven Board of Ed, and we eventually get appointments that we can take through the city, we're going to do it just by age. we thought that was the fairest way to do it. We didn't want to say that, any one group was any more important than the other, especially, since last March, when everyone, in my opinion, our custodians, our food service people, certainly our teachers, was any more important than anybody else. So again, we planned the presentation tonight. We plan to have some of our administrators here, but again, we are pausing that. When we are ready to go, we will let you guys know. We'll let you know what the plan is, and I will have the administrators here to answer any questions about details of the daily schedule. We've worked with Winkle, we've talked to Meg, we've done it pretty well and pretty thoroughly, but it didn't make sense. So with that, again, you guys have gotten all the information. If you have any questions on that topic, I'm happy to answer them, but that's kind of where it stands right now. Yep.
I just want to recap what you said. You were saying that you're going to have like lunches and stuff like that starting February 22nd, provided the vaccine.
Yeah, we had thought we could. Our initial plan, Jim, was we thought the dates we had originally thought that the city was going to set up their tents, and Kev, you may have, was this weekend. I think they were originally supposed to start, and they were going to do Friday, Saturday, Sunday appointments for West Haven employees only, and the West Haven Board of Ed would have gotten slots this weekend and next weekend. But it never materialized because I'm assuming the state says we're not going to, or whoever is, we're not sending you the vaccines because we're doing only 75 or older.
Okay, so I guess it's probably safe to say that it's going to be happening for the 22nd.
Oh, no, we're not going to. And the reason I said the 22nd, not that everyone would have been vaccinated, but I thought that if I gave a deadline and teachers were able to sign up, knowing we were going to go to the 22nd, they'd be more apt to sign up quicker. In other words, it's one of those, the more time you give people, the more they delay it. But I was even open to, when I met with the teachers last week, I said, look, we'll target the 22nd. Let's see who signs up. And if we have a lot more to go, just because spaces are filling up, if we had to push it to March 1st or whatever, we would be willing to do that. Again, we're not gonna, we've done pretty well now, up to now, and, to just extend the day without getting at least the majority of people appointments and or their first vaccine, it makes sense.
I mean, like I talked to people who are older than 75, several people, West Haven and stuff like that. They were saying that your appointments aren't like mid-February for the first appointment, and then obviously the second one not until late February, early March, stuff like that. So I'm just thinking that you're saying when people 75 and older, it seems to me that this thing is programs is not going as quick as they want the program to go. I'm saying, and so it just seems to me that it's going to probably be much longer, I would think, before these teachers get vaccinated.
I'm guessing at least a month, Jimmy. The difference is that if we are able to go through the site that the city is setting up, it's somehow strictly for West Haven employees. And the way it was going to work was based, it will work, at least if it, if the process doesn't change. We are going to take the list, again, oldest to youngest, and we were going to assign you a date and a time to go. So, again, based on that, we would have a pretty good idea of when everybody would receive the initial dose as well as the second dose. But it looks like we're going to have to postpone it. And again, I'm not going to, risk the goodwill that we've gotten and the cooperation we've gotten for the sake of a couple of weeks. Our program is doing well. In fact, the other thing I should mention, and this goes from the high school, who really has taken a strong initiative in all of our schools. Our real goal now is to get kids back to school. And they've done a terrific job of doing that. And again, I don't want to and I'm talking about administrators, teachers, I mean, they've spent time on the phone with families, and they've gotten the enrollment in the in-school, in-person learning up substantially. I don't want to, risk that.
I'm happy to see that the sports, obviously, the kids are starting to sport today. The sport is a good sign.
Yeah.
He's moving along, but just want to make sure that, the staff, the teachers are, protected and that, they are vaccinated. As I said, it's the same as right from the beginning, last August, the safety of our staff, is paramount to everything, right now. So I just want to, make sure, that we do it right, not rush it along.
No, listen, again, Jimmy, I left the meeting with the teachers, members of the teachers union on Friday to explain a plan. And then, again, we received all of this information probably starting Friday afternoon. And we've got communications over the weekend and up to today that says, put a pause on it, so I'm not gonna rush things.
Yes.
Could you just tell us what the breakdown is for, remote learning versus in-person learning? You said it went up somehow.
Yeah, we're up over about 65% as a district in school. The high school really did a good job. They were, before the holidays, they were between 35 and 40, and you're up about 50, 55% now.
We're at 53% as of today.
Yeah, so it's a really positive sign, and I think that's great. In fact, what I keep saying to Dana and the people at the high school is, put us in a position where we might have to pick a hybrid model because we're getting so many kids back to school before we can get the vaccine out. But that would be an ideal situation. And again, they've done a terrific job when they're communicating. They're spending time on the phone. They're bringing the parents and the kids in to meet with them. And frankly, what I see, Rose, and you and I may have discussed this, is I think the real work is ahead of us when we see kids who've been out of school for such a long period of time next year. So anything we can do to get that process going and get the kids back in school this year, I think would be a real, I think it would be a real achievement, because we would then know where kids stand. I think I may have mentioned to you this last meeting, I'm concerned about the number of kindergartners who haven't been in school. I'm concerned on the other end of juniors and seniors who have to start making plans for beyond high school. And again, it's going to be a challenge, a real challenge going forward. I'm also concerned that we may get a lot of requests for retention prior to the end of the year. Again, I can see that coming at all levels, where normally it's limited to kindergartners, first graders. I can see that parents making that request, right up through high school and at all the levels, just again, based on, I'm concerned that my child hasn't been in school. So, we really want to get the kids, do all we can to get the kids back in school this year.
Is that what I do?
Sorry, I'm sorry. Please, do you see the kids that are learning at home, the remote learners, are they more involved? Is there more live teaching going on?
Yes, there is. In fact, that was also a good part of our discussion with the teachers. We felt like they were doing a lot more of it. We were willing to offer them some incentives. I envision more meetings over the next couple of weeks, even prior to extending the school day, to try to get that happening more. And again, I think that they understand the need to get the kids back more engaged with the classroom.
It's difficult.
Yeah, it's very
It's
difficult.
And, I wish them all luck, but I think it's really important for the kids at home to feel like they're part of the classroom.
Yeah, remember, we saw that when we did that the first week of remote learning, the week after Thanksgiving. We saw a big difference, and again, we want to keep going in the right direction and get those kids engaged. However, we also need to, one of the things that we discussed with the teachers, and I don't think I'm ever going to stop it, we've heard loud and clear from the teachers that, kids are signing on late in the day, or, teachers are communicating through emails. We're saying, look, don't, work your day, but get the kids involved during the day, and don't answer your emails at midnight or allow them to turn in work at 1 a.m. Be more vigilant about attendance and those kinds of things. And again, I think that's all part of a strategy that will eventually get kids back to school as well.
Thank you. I think it's good to keep in the back of our minds the kindergarten enrollment for next year for not only just the retention students, but some of those parents who may have been on the cusp of, well, they could go to school, but they could also not go to school, and did they hold them back because of the pandemic, thinking, well, I'm just gonna wait another year. As a mom of a November baby, I did that when she was little, but that might increase our kindergarten numbers a fair amount.
Yeah, and just to reiterate, I had the opportunity to speak to Dr. Cardona. He actually called me a couple of weeks ago. He was returning. Imagine the guy's getting ready to get nominated for separate, and I never imagined he'd return the call, but he did. And we talked a great deal about really the work, the bulk of the work that lies ahead of us next year.
On a normal year, seeing a greater number of retentions might hurt off standing or cause some problems with the state. Do you think that would be not? It does happen at a significant, statistically higher number next year.
And it's a really good question. Keep in mind that first of all, it is the district's call has the final say. Now, normally what we do anytime we retain any child is we like to start having those meetings now in February and March. We do trimesters in the elementary schools, at least by the end of the second trimester, to start talking to the parents and the families to make those decisions. My feeling always was, as a former elementary principal, was give the child the benefit of the doubt in kindergarten. It's better to hold it back in first grade. But I am worried this year, particularly because so many social skills are taught at kindergarten. I think everybody's going to be in the same boat. I can't imagine what New Haven's doing. If you also see, actually Kevin and I spoke a little bit this morning, but there's a newsletter that I sent out from the Department of Education, which talked about accountability and testing, and the purpose of testing, and how we would use testing this year. There's a nice blurb in there. And I'm okay with testing. I know the department is looking for some waivers. However, if it's used for individual student growth and growth as a district, I don't think it's a bad thing. One of the things that they're not going to do is tier schools or put more schools into the commissioner's network, which would mean you're on high alert kind of thing. I think that's okay if that's why we are doing any kind of testing. But I mean, that's something that, we'll keep you posted, but it's something that, is going to be important, that if we do the testing, we need to make sure why we're doing it and maybe use it as a baseline so that we can start to check student growth beginning next year.
Channel my inner Dr. Kozlowski and say for data-driven planning.
Yes, but that's fine if that's why you're using it.
Yeah.
But if you're gonna say, oh, look at West Haven,
Right.
There's a lot of things to consider. Who came to school? When it comes to school, and again, what concerned me, since we've been meeting, we've really been charting the number of English language learners who haven't been in school. And that's going to certainly affect your testing scores.
Have you decided on your approach to those who would refuse or have the reluctance of accepting the vaccination?
For the employees?
Yeah.
There's actually been a couple of webinars. that the state has offered, and I've had some conversation. I think one thing is that it's very clear that you can't hold it against somebody for not taking the vaccine. However, you should also know that many of the COVID days and things have sunsetted. And for example, you're not going to be allowed 10 days COVID to be out before you have to use sick time. You would have to start using sick time immediately. So, the high-risk people who refused, and by the way, we had good sign-up. We had about 850, we have about 950 full-time employees. About 850 signed up through us. Now, that doesn't mean that some of the others didn't get it somewhere else. In fact, I know some of them did. So the majority, vast majority have signed up for it. But I think, Patrick, it's a really good question. There's no more, again, they're not going to be able to use COVID time anymore. And I think we can demand them to come to work, would be the bottom line. Hopefully, we can get a result there. And then listen, there are some people who legitimately aren't going to be able to get the vaccine. And we'll have to deal with those on a case-by-case basis. But I think for the most part, people are signing up, and they're going to be made to come to work.
That's a great number, by the way, 850 out of 950.
Well, 950 full-time employees. We also have people like coaches on there. Business Network Group is on there. I'm trying to think some of the other non-full-time employees that we have on there. A couple of food service people who are employed by Sodexo. So they're, it's still a good number. We also have some substitute. The biggest one, we have a lot of retired teachers who are our best substitute teachers, who we haven't been able to use, that we'll be able to get back working again. So, Rose.
You said that there's no more like COVID time for people, but if a teacher or a para or anybody was exposed to COVID in school, they wouldn't have to take the sick pay, correct?
We have not changed. We have not changed our policy yet, and we don't plan on doing so until the vaccine is available. So, in other words, if tomorrow you became exposed, we would give you the 10 days before we started using sick time. I think that's only fair.
After the vaccine.
Yeah, then we'll have to look at the rules, and I'll have to, I'm sure, have some conversations with Floyd and see what the State Department of Ed is recommending. But for now, even though I believe it's up, we have not changed it. We have not changed what we're doing.
No, I don't even hasn't changed to me that if you get exposed at school, that you have to quarantine because you were exposed at school.
Yeah, we're not going to change it until the vaccine. We'll look at it case by case even then.
Thank you.
All right. Before I turn it over to Matt to do a budget presentation, I just want to say this, and he and I have spent a lot of time talking about the budget this year. You all know we've had various funding sources. There's COVID funds. We believe that, based on the last, not the one that's being proposed by President-elect Biden, on the last stimulus package that was passed, our Board of Ed is, through the state, go from the federal government to the state and from the state to us. We're going to receive a substantial number, an amount that we'll be able to use towards COVID relief. That is not included in this budget. Also, what's not included in this budget is any additional alliance funds, which we anticipate. In fact, I spoke to Michael DeMassa today, who's on the Appropriations Committee. The governor is submitting his budget to the legislature on February 10th. We'll know more by then. Common sense would tell you, good sense would tell you that we shouldn't even be doing this today, except we're obligated to submit a budget to the mayor by February 1st. Ideally, we'd like to have more time to see what funds we have available to us, and more importantly, how you're going to spend those funds. Is it going to be teaching positions for direct instruction for kids who are behind because of COVID? Is it going to be for infrastructure projects? A combination of all of that. Those are all unknowns. Again, you listen to Matt's presentation, it's similar to what you've seen in the past. However, it does not take into consideration any potential additional funding, be it Alliance grant, be it code funding, that we anticipate, and we do anticipate some funding. And again, you know, ideally, we would rather do this later, but we have to get the budget in. Now, again, we should also keep in mind, and I think the reason it's important to pass this budget, you all know there's a percentage of increase. I think it's important because this board, and we have advocated for teacher raises. To my knowledge, everyone that we've gone to, I know you guys supported, agreed that the teachers needed to get their step and to get some kind of raise. That's obviously the majority of the increase that we're asking for. There's a very good possibility that with the numbers that we've been getting in Alliance, that'll be absorbed and we won't need an increase from the city. However, again, until those numbers are known, we are asking for a percentage increase from the city. And again, I believe, I can't sit here today and tell you that we have the money, it's going to be covered, and the city's not going to have to give us any more money. Remember, we're doing a budget based on what we know now, because that's the prudent way to do it. With that, I'll turn it over to Matt. And at any time during the presentation, you have questions for either he or I, we're happy to answer them. But again, my suggestion is we could spend as much time as we want, and we'll go over every line item if you want, but don't get crazy now just because at the end of the day, we think there's more money and we'll be able to put better numbers as we get closer to May and even June before we adopt an operating budget. So that.
Okay, so in front of you is the presentation for 21-22 recommended budget. That total budget will be $91,591,947. In the city's 5-year capital plan that was approved by MARB, there was a 0% increase from the city. But as you can see in the further pages that although we're not relying on it at this point, it is anticipated that there will be around that same dollar amount increase in the Alliance funds, as well as other funding possibilities, which Neil just talked about. On the next page, next slide, you can see how the money is allocated by each breakdown of our budget. As you can see, a majority, over 70% of our budget is based in salaries and benefits. Instruction is one of the lowest percentage, but it has been growing over the years. The budget highlights. One of the most important things is sure.
Purchase services, what are those again?
So those are our contracts that we have, like
ACES?
no, like our law attorney, TD&G, Xerox for our copy center, and our leases for the copy fleet within the schools, stuff like that.
And then where does ACES stuff come in? Is that on tuition?
So yeah, ACES. So the special education outplacements go under tuition, and then any professional development that gives to our staff would come under the instruction plans.
All right.
So the budget highlights, the first one, if you remember a few years ago, we released about 3,500 Chromebooks. The final payment for that first round of leases is due in July. So once we make that payment, the Board of Ed will basically own the first round of Chromebooks, and they will still be under warranty. And the second round, which we just did, has one more payment, and that those will come out of these.
We're ahead of schedule.
Yes, we are.
We use some leftover funds to get ahead of the payments.
Yes, and I hope if we do have some at the end of this budget year, that we will do the same thing.
Didn't any of our Chromebooks come from COVID money this year, from the state or?
Because if you remember, we did the first round 2 years ago, and then last year we purchased them for what would have been the high school. And we moved those down to the kindergarten, first and second grade, because all of the high school got a laptop.
Okay, but we didn't get any Chromebooks.
We did get some Chromebooks, but the majority, what we did purchase enough for the high school last year, which we moved down to the elementary schools. So we've got 2 years of leases. It's a 3-year cycle.
Thank you.
The second highlight are the salary increases. This makes up the majority of the budget increase. Next year, the teacher's contract calls for step movement and a 1% increase to the members who are currently on top step. And ASME and CWA will both get a 1% increase with no step movement.
Can you clarify that? Is it step movement and 1% for teachers, or is it just it's 1% only for the top step?
1% only for the top step.
So if you're getting a step movement, you don't get the 1%.
No. So if you're on step 10 of the teacher's contract, the last step, there's nowhere else to move. So those employees will be getting a 1% increase on that top.
Can you tell me whether or not the step movements actually equate to 1% or higher? Higher?
Yes.
What about average would be a step increase?
It varies for each step because, starting at low 40s and ending at 80s in between 10 steps, it's not always even. I would say a dollar amount, the increases go from anywhere from 2,000 to 3,000 to the high end of 5,000 to 6,000.
So would you say like from 2 to 4% on
Yeah.
average?
Yes.
It's more than that. I've got
I thought it
at
was
least,
4.
I would say an average is around 4%. And there are some that are even larger than that as you get closer to the top. One of the things I'm a little bit concerned about is, and this happens every couple of contracts, is you want to try to even out the steps so that you're not making a big jump towards the last step. Normally, that's traditional. You add 1% to the top, that makes the gap between step 9 and 10 a little bit larger. And you don't want that. You want it to be kind of an even progression.
And do teachers move one step at a time, or do some move multiple steps at once?
One at a time. But they can move. So if they go back to school and get another degree, they could get a step movement plus a degree change, which will be another increase in pay.
Thank you.
And finally, in the salary increases, we have set aside some money in a type of contingency line item C44 for ongoing contract negotiations. And then the
Next question.
Sure.
Now, as far as the benefits are concerned, what are the chances for next July about getting teachers into the state medical plan? I know we talked about it more.
Sure.
We did about that.
We have spent a good deal of time this year. We've done all of the work that we can do. In fact, I just had an email communication with Floyd today based on something I received from Michael Malone. One thing we need to address are the retiree benefits. What do we do with them? I think we can incur the cost if there's any change in their plan, and it would be worth it to be able to move our active employees over to the state plan. It's an application process, which we were told should start in February. We're prepared to do that. We know there are going to be savings. However, the one issue remains is the run out that we have to pay with the current plan at hand. Matt and I both feel, however, that even if it cost us some money the first year to pay the runoff, long-term it's worth it. So I would tell you today, the chances, unless we get a really bad answer on the runoff, and it's a lot more than we thought, or they wanna, I don't know how we would work it out, they want it up front. I would say the chances are very good that we're gonna move all of our active employees to the state partnership.
I think based on the fact that the state fund is now part of Anthem, that can surely be negotiated.
Yeah, we can't.
We already tried.
And they told us no.
They're treating it as two separate entities.
I don't understand why, but we sat down, and that was our first.
Yes.
Since Anthony has this, we sat down with the city's representative, and, why couldn't we work out a payment plan? No, that's not to say that the city couldn't front us the money, because we pay the majority of the runoff out of the savings of our actual
Exactly.
line item for health benefits.
So if we were to switch, the goal in year one would be to break even. When Neil and I speak about the runoff, what we're talking about is claims that are incurred, but not yet reported by Anthem. So for an example, if an individual has a car accident and there's still litigation with insurance companies and whatnot, the claims and have been provided, but until the litigation is settled, we wouldn't pay the bill as being self-insured. So there's a possibility while there is this big number in the runoff that will have to be paid, it's a possibility it might not be paid. So it's kind of hanging over our heads, and it's a large number, and it is kind of, it might be detrimental to the savings that you may expect to see. Ultimately, the savings may still be there in year one, but the plan to be break even
Would be the ideal for sure. And again, if you add that cost in the cost of retirees, and remember, the difference between the city and the board is the board of ed has hundreds, if not, I would say maybe 1,000 more people between active and inactive people that would make the cost for it. But right now, I would say that it looks good. Yes, it looks good for moving our employees.
How about this question? Can you use any of that COVID funding that's coming in possibly for the runoff or towards the medical plan? Is that possible?
I don't know. The direct answer would be no, but it's not to say that once we see what we're able to use the money on, that it won't free up other areas within our budget to redirect money towards that. So that all really depends on when we get the grant applications and we sit down and we see what the money is allowable, and then formulate a plan on how to spend it.
This might be an option down the road.
The other thing, possible, keep this in mind, that what that would entail, and I don't see it as an issue, we would have to go to the city and negotiate any money possibly that we turn back over to the city and say, look, we need to put this aside so that we're able to do that, because that won't happen until July 1st when the new budget gets in.
Okay. And then the last highlight is the two other areas where we'll see an increase. Transportation contract calls for a 2% increase in fiscal 2022, and then we are increasing the tuition line item to keep up with rising costs. This is just.
Let me back up. So we're increasing it 2% for transportation. Keep in mind, transportation is an area where we would anticipate some savings this year, simply because we're not doing extracurricular activities, field trips. So far, there's been no transportation for sports, and we anticipate even in the winter sports, not much. So there's a perfect example, Jim, of where there'd be an opportunity of being able to save budgeted
funds.
So this slide is a snapshot of our grant funds. I would think the main point of this slide would be when you're looking at the Alliance grant, consistently over the past few years, we've seen increases over $1 million, right around the number that we're asking for. Although, when it's not guaranteed, it is a safe assumption that we will receive some sort of increase to alleviate the ask. And then just to go into the actual line items that are increasing, salary line items, total increase of a little over $1.4 million. This is based on contractual union raises and ongoing negotiations. This is just a chart of the actual unions and what they will be receiving next year, and then you can see the actual dollar amounts that each union will receive. I'm sure that CWA numbers eye-popping, but there are very, very few employees in that union. Next is tuition. This is receiving a modest increase of $106,351. Currently, we have 136 students outplaced. This is in my opinion, the main area that can really turn our budget on its head. We don't have any control. Students' needs are always put first, and as you can see, an outplacement can range from $45,000 to $150,000 per student. Then you have to add on the transportation costs and any other additional services that are required. So these outplacements can get very expensive very quickly. And also to keep in mind that by law, it is up to the Board of Ed to educate these types of students that may be outplaced from the age of 3 to 21. Special education, it's about 27% of our total operating budget. I'm going to include the tuition, transportation, salary categories, and the enrollment of special ed students with special ed needs is continually on the rise.
Isn't some of that reimbursement? Now we get money from the state.
Yep, next slide. So the next, it's the excess cost grant. So this is this is a reimbursement that we get back from the state when outplaced tuition exceeds 4.5 times higher than what it costs to educate a regular ed student, or 100% if the state placed the student in our district. So I just got the number of what we are expecting for this fiscal year. I don't even think I told Jim this yet, Joe this yet, but it's just under 2.5 million. So it increased 170,000, which is a good thing. So if you add this 2.4 number to the number that we budgeted, we feel we will be able to adequately afford all of the tuition. Good.
Going back to special education, you said that the total district enrollment continues to drop. Is it a given that, is it a given that they just keep dropping every year?
Well, I don't think it's a given, but I think based on what we've seen that more students in this district are requiring additional services. And if that is the case, then we have to begin to allocate more funds to provide the services that those students deserve.
Would we be able to project the work of 3 numbers?
Yes, I agree with her. Put Joe on the spot.
I didn't hear the question.
Don't you project a little bit of the special ed budget, the growth of it on the birth of 3 numbers? Or no?
Well, with the birth of 3 numbers, Yeah, we work with staff, and we kind of get an idea.
Yeah.
Typically, Bertha 3, they're not going directly to an outplacement.
Right.
But I will say this, probably over the last 5 years or so, we've had more and more students at a younger age with severe needs. And recently, we've had to outplace more younger students based on those needs. So we do try to use that to project with Matt, both in our programming, what we're doing in district, and what we may need to do in regards to outplacing students for the next school year or upcoming school year. It's not a huge number at 3, but it is increasing every year based on the needs of the students.
That's what it projects for the first 3
Okay, the transportation, as I said, local bus contract calls for a 2% increase next fiscal year. There's 1 year left on the contract with Winkle, and it calls for no increase in the final year. All other budget categories will be flat funded next fiscal year.
Matt, I have a question.
Sure.
You're talking about a projected budget of like $91 million.
Mhm.
And I really, every year I bring this up, I really have a problem that we only allocate $1.5 million or so for instruction, which I think is one of the most important things to help our teachers in the classroom, to help our students learn in different ways. And isn't there any way that there could be more money put into instruction?
So I would say yes, based on the fact that there is a potential for us to see a significant amount of funds from the COVID relief. I would say for this fiscal year that we're currently in, even though we only had 1.4 budgeted through the 2 grants from COVID relief that we got this year, we were able to buy. We outfitted Bailey Middle School with 22 Promethean boards. So that means half of the classrooms at Bailey now have additional technology. We're able to buy webcams, document cameras, swivel sets, and about $350,000 of software programs. So I mean, although it's only $1.4 million budget in the local budget, there are other areas that we pull in. We rely on our Title I grants to get technology and educational materials. So anytime we can spend money on instruction, we do. And I think, like I said, with this pot of money that's coming from the state, I think it will be a very good opportunity to beef up that line item, so to speak.
I hope so, and I hope it trickles down to the lower grades, go through materials so quickly, pieces get lost, books get torn. I know we put a lot of money into, into Bailey and into the high school, obviously. But I think elementary all the way down to preschool could use some help.
But I mean, I don't want to speak for Neil or anybody, but I would think that from Promethean boards are so well received within our district, I can't imagine then those type of boards slowing down the elementary levels. So I think that it's going to be a unique opportunity to spend additional money, that money that we've never really had before, with this new grant that we should be seeing, because we do stand to see a substantial increase to the funds that we got for this year.
And maybe even the money we save with the solar panels.
Yes.
Could be around instruction.
Sure.
Thank you.
And then the final 2 slides are just the breakdown of how our budget is currently When you see the $89.9 million, there's two funding sources. There's an educational cost sharing grant from the state, and then the local city funding. Right now, it's about close to 50-50. But the good thing and the different thing than in years past, because the state has combined the ECS funding with the Alliance grant, anytime there's an increase in that funding, it comes directly to the board. 100% of the increase comes directly to the board, so it's ours. The city cannot reduce its local share with those funds, so any type of increase comes directly to us. And with that, I will look into that.
Just one question, I'm gonna make sure I understand when Neil started this off. So Neil, we are asking the city for a percentage increase, or we're asking?
We are, based on the fact that we just don't know what increase we stand to get in the form of an Alliance grant, and or how we can shift some of the COVID money or excess funds that we didn't ask for earlier.
So do we know a percentage of what we're?
Yeah, it's,
1.81. Yeah. It was on the executive summary.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. All right, we have student rep.
Okay, so first I'd like to begin with an update on winter sports. Today, winter sports are back. There was tryouts for hockey and for basketball. And for indoor track, we have a meeting, and there's no confirmed competition for track. We're going to be running practices, wearing our masks, and the students are ready and accepting of all the COVID protocols for us to get our season. And then, in terms of board event, student rep number 3. The interviews for that student will be joining Mackenzie and I are going to be taking place next week or two. Our yearbook for Weston High School is in full swing. Students and teachers are taking pictures inside their classroom, and students are asked like so they have as many photos as possible to be reviewed by the yearbook club. And a lot of clubs are still like flourishing and doing really good over Zoom. I know my student story is doing really good with his student government and his AIC club, Traffic and Integrity. We still have our Yale Urban Debate League, which West Team kids are getting taught and doing debate practices with Yale students throughout the evening online through Zoom. I have a meeting from our robotics club coming up next week in class council too. And our PA toy drive, which we have kids did really well. We served more families than ever in PA history. And because of all the money for youth, we get multiple shopping trips. And then in terms of fall sports, there's a lot going on for a lot of teams. I know our boys cross country team was the first ever to win SEC for the team. For boys soccer, we won SEC. And for other achievements for boys soccer team, we had 3 guys go all divisions, all SEC. It was Aldo, Marion, Jovan, Rohan, and as terms of like the SEC as a whole, Aldo was a tournament player out of everyone in SEC. Derek Mezzo was our championship player of the game. Aldo was also SEC player of the year. And then Aldo and I both got all-state first team and senior bowl coming up in the spring, hopefully. And yeah, I'm just excited to see what the board will do this year with new year and new opportunities. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and congratulations on your soccer achievements. I think Bob brought it up a couple weeks ago, but you weren't here to congratulate you on your achievements with soccer, so we're very proud of you.
Please, Mackenzie's at hockey.
Yes, I'm sorry, I should have said that. Mackenzie is at hockey practice, that's why she was unable to join us.
Well, she may join us until it's 7. She may run.
Oh, she may get in get any quick, but she's preparing for an important, successful
I kind of hope.
girls hockey year.
Not allowed showers after hockey.
Oh, yeah, maybe not. Maybe we should tell her not to come to the showers.
If you could sit out,
Yeah, that's true. All right, next we have board and. Oh, yeah. I'll start down here with you.
Well, so I do think it's a great budget that's been put together, and I look forward to seeing how much more money we get to see what we can spend. And I'm excited about a lot of the programs that are going on, a lot of the same as you guys. So hopefully we're heading in the right direction.
Agreed. It feels like we're getting like a Amazon gift card moment or something like this, right?
Or at one time on West's Win.
There you go, that's even better, Wesley's win. Rosa, you good, Bob? Yeah. Good. Jim, anything else?
Just quickly.
Sure.
Thank you. Ken Carney gave a presentation last board meeting, and thank him for that, and all the upcoming school projects. One thing he did hit upon was about the high school possibly coming in the budget about $2 million, you know. As we said right now, so we're not sure, and obviously we're not part of looking down over there and see what else. Hopefully nothing will be major, but my question, I talked to Neil about this also during the week, is the possibility that if we do have money left over, you know, the state is giving approximately 80%, and the city is paying 20%, so I think it would be very wise and prudent to have like a plan B if we have extra money left over. I see Dana sitting out there possibly, you know, Neil talking to Dana and talking to staff at the high school about things down the road, you know, what the school can use. I think the money's sitting there. The state's giving it to us instead of just us giving it back when we're under budget. You know, we need more technology, you know, a year and a half down the road or something like that, or things, as I said, things that you could use, just an idea, a plan B. Think about, you know, I'm gonna thank Ken, because he said right now, $2 million in the budget, but as I said, if that money's sitting there, there's no reason why we just give it back to the state of Connecticut. I think we should use it to the fullest for the new high school. So it's just something that we'll Neil about, and Neil, I think Neil did a great man on it, you know.
Absolutely. I mean, to me, given, like you said, given our percentage, we should spend as close to the amount as is allowed. And we, you know, Ken and I had some conversations, but I don't disagree. If there's, you know, remember, and again, I'm not sure what's allowable, but for example, by the time the building's complete, we'll have some technology that's 2, 3, 4 years old, and maybe there's some opportunities to upgrade. Because one area, of course. I'm not sure yet. I said, I don't know, because you know, you're allowed so much in various categories. FF&E is full. And by the way, since the project started, and now there's a lot less you can actually buy in the area of technology. And, you know, as the state went more and more debt, they changed the rules. And here's their logic. In other words, we'll build you the new building. At one time, everything was included. Now what they're saying is, if we build you the new building, you still have to buy the technology. However, you know, because of when we started the project, there may be some.
Allowable.
I agree. I think we're all.
My husband would testify that I would agree with that, to spend all the money that you have allocated for whenever you get it. So I definitely agree with you on that, Jim. Next, we have D1, approval of minutes. I'll entertain a motion. Thank you. A second? Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you very much. D3, okay, we expect to get it. Just one, 21-05, I'll entertain a motion. Second? Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you very much. Under new business, we have a motion I'll entertain a motion to approve the recommended 2021 budget. Second? Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Excellent, motion passes. And the rest is informational, so I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Second? I know everyone's in favor, thank you very much.